So nothing better than a session before drinks, like Reese was saying. I love Homer Simpson. I remember this particular episode when I was a kid. He was on jury duty, and he obviously wasn't paying attention. So hopefully you can sort of learn a little bit in this last half an hour or so. But, you know, first and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone here. I'd like to thank, you know, attendees, speakers, sponsors, and organizers. You know, Google Cloud, Istio, Bull Kite, Sysdig, Microsoft. And obviously, Igor and the rest of the team. I think what I've learned is that this is volunteers, right, who take off their time to make these sorts of environments where we can all learn. So it's pretty cool, pretty humble, and appreciative to everyone. Okay, so who am I? My name is Shaun Stuart, Shaun Stuart, Shaun. My dad and my mom gave me two names that form an interesting journey of always having to, for better choice of words, clarify how you spell my name. I was born in South Africa. My dad and my mom are British. My grandparents are British, worked on a mine. My dad was an electrician. So I spent 12 or 13 years in the United Kingdom. So one would argue a couple of artifacts of my journey. So my identity is Shaun Stuart, obviously. Some artifacts is I love world champion rugby. Hopefully the girls in New Zealand take it out this weekend. I'm married to a Kiwi on the right there. Her name's Catherine, Judah, Amara, and then my son, Leonardo. I'm thinking he's got a real big head because next to myself, it doesn't look really small. So I was kind of like, is it just me or does he have a big head? Thumbs up if you think he's got a big head. Okay, a couple of thumbs up, great. First job was for British Standards Institution in the United Kingdom in Chiswick Park. My very first job was on the help desk where Shaun or Stuart would answer the phone and talk to people about resetting passwords and helping client managers who, if you don't know British Standards Institution, they basically write standards and they audit organizations. So it's really trying to help customers and organizations do the right thing. I love John's session early on, right? Because fundamentally, the heart and the ethos of that is trying to do the right thing, trying to get that risk and compliance nutted, you know, and that's pretty cool. Yeah, so one more thing before I go. I've worked in Australia. I've been in New Zealand for coming on 5 years. My wife's Kiwi, obviously, I mentioned that. And, you know, looking forward to the game on Saturday. Anyone going to watch the game, England versus New Zealand? Any hands up? Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. Okay, cool. All right, so nothing better than another survey, right? So really, just to set a little bit of context, Forrester conducted a survey in the beginning of 2022. Some interesting measurements there, but it was an international survey, over a couple of thousand filled in the survey. It was really, you know, North America, UK, APAC, and the sizes that they touched on, interestingly enough, enterprise grade, and some of the practitioners and some of the individuals, right? And really wanted to understand is what's going on in the cloud. Like, what are you as a customer, engineer, or practitioner, or manager, or a leader of a DevOps sort of, you know, organization? What are you experiencing? What's the feedback, right? So a couple of cool stats here. Which of the following describes the organization's multi-cloud strategy? And you can see 21%, you know, planning to implement, lift and shift. 3 have already done it. They want to refactor, I'd say. 13% have not implemented or upgraded. Skill shortage, straight up, 41%. Like, hey, like we've got so much to do. We've got a shortage of engineers. And I feel like because I live in Auckland, Aotearoa, and I've spent some time in Wellington, I definitely feel that's the case, right? Just talking to customers. Couple of interesting measurements that came out is cloud spend. They're concerned about that. I read a crazy report the other day about a guy that's going back on-prem. I was like, good luck. I think he's going to face a lot of challenges there. But hey, on-premise is a thing, right? Like there are still data centers that are running and humming. So the big picture out of that survey, and you can download it. It's online. You can absolutely download it. Is the 5 numbers of note. 94% or wasting money in the cloud, obviously. The elephant in the room, say multi-cloud is working, so that's cool. Lioners, a skill shortage is a thing, and then 89% security, a key driver of cloud success, right? And we'll break that down in a little bit more detail. Obviously, when I was running my wife through this presentation, she's like, why is all the animals from South Africa and you live in New Zealand? So I'm like, I'm biased, right? Obviously, I've been on this journey and I've been an engineer, I've been a practitioner to a certain extent, and I've been in various organizations or industries like airline, transportation, financial services, amongst other things. So self-awareness is a thing. I'm just going to run through of what I've learned, what I'm seeing, and hopefully we can all sort of collaborate and work together. Okay, a couple of more stats. Obviously, reliability is a thing. Like, if it's running in a data center, you want the best engineers working on it, definitely for sure. But there's a couple other interesting metrics there. Security and governance. Governance, 41%. You know, cost reduction. Take a moment to go through that. Security is a key driver of cloud success. Obviously, security is a thing, right? We don't want our data to get stolen. Passwords, credentials, secret leakage. You know, if you break down these stories of customers getting owned for better choice of words, you know, someone got access and elevated that. But security is a thing, and that's what we're going to kind of focus on today. So let's talk about a story about security in the cloud. So obviously, Stuart or Shaun Stuart, I decided to go on a vacation to an exotic hotel in Sri Lanka or Porirua, New Zealand. Anyone been to Porirua over here? Wow, that's actually not bad. Wow, there's more hands than who wanted to watch the rugby. So basically, on the left-hand side, right, 3 kids, obviously no longer honeymoon where I went to Sri Lanka, the Taj Toto Resort, which is like a chain of hotels. So I hop on Airbnb, I create an account, I register to go and stay at Sandy. And I'd encourage you, if you're ever going to Porirua, it's an awesome little two-bedder on a lifestyle block with horses. And she's actually a super host. She's pretty awesome. She meets me when I arrive and she gives me keys. She says, Shaun, here are the keys. You can go in the house. You've got a bunch of amenities you can do. You know, if you want to use a washing machine, go for it. If you want to watch a bit of TV, you can do that. It's got an EV charger, which is quite ironic because it's in the middle of nowhere, but that's a good thing. But on one condition, don't go to the shed where the horses are. So I'm like, absolutely, Sandy, got you. Thanks for the brief. I'm there for a couple of days. We're passing through. And then off I go. Probably an hour later, my little 3-year-old's in the shed at the back, and he's playing with stuff that he shouldn't be playing with. So I go in there, I pull him out, and I'm like, oh gosh. So I have to spend a lot of energy around that, right? To the right, Taj Toto Resort in Spa in Sri Lanka. Chain of hotels. I hop on online, okay? I fill in my details, I give my credit card, I pay, I go to this hotel, I arrive, I say, hi, I'm Shaun Stuart, I'm here for 2 weeks honeymoon. They said, fantastic. Show me your passport. What's the artifact that's going to backtrack to you as Shaun Stuart? Your identity is Shaun Stuart. I'm Shaun Stuart, I know I am. There might be another Shaun, actually there is a couple of Shaun Stuarts out there when you go on LinkedIn. But I'm Shaun Stuart, but I have artifacts, or I have these things that or for better choice of words, highlight that I am who I say I am. You know, if you live in New Zealand, you know Real Me. Everyone know Real Me, your digital identity. So I fill in my details. I take my passport. I go into the post office. Someone goes like this. Hopefully they're doing the right thing. That's another challenge there. But anyway, they look at me and they say, yes, Shaun Stuart, I've got a Real Me identity. Off I can go. But coming back to this hotel, right? The moment I give them my passport, they connect me to a card that will allow me to access all the facilities in this hotel. So what does that mean? So, hey, if I want to go for a swim, got the card, tap in, it's got time, TTL, time to live on it. I've got a certain period of time that I can enjoy these amenities, right? I've paid for them. And so I can go around and enjoy it using my card. Yeah, I could, you know, maybe Reese or John could come and I'll just give them the key. They can go and enjoy some of the stuff. So I could swap the key around. So there's a bit of a concern there. If you look on the right-hand side, if you think about the hotel, Taj Went Toda is part of chains of hotels. This is going to get to security at some point, I promise you. So you've got a chain of hotels, right? But what you sort of realize is that there's a concept of a digital identity, right? Where I have that same representation on my mobile phone, but it sort of connects me to my biometrics. So this innovation of identity, so to speak. But fundamentally, what these workflows can look like, right? So it's supposed to be Shaun Stuart, typo. Goes on to Airbnb, that's my human identity. Goes on to Airbnb, do some stuff where suddenly machine identity comes alive. And they're just validating what's going on. Cycle back, get my key, host says, here you go, Shaun, off I go. On the right-hand side, right, that same workflow, obviously there's lots of missing pieces, but you know how you architect on a napkin sometimes. Shaun Stuart, email, name, number, credit card details, bunch of machine identity stuff going on there. Go to reception, they validate my passport. Obviously, real me is just showing that there. I get my key with the time to live attached to that key. And I can go and use that to enjoy the benefits of that hotel for a certain period of time, depending on how long that TTL is. Security starts with identity, who I am, okay? So on the left-hand side, a human, and it's kind of simplified somewhat, but, you know, I mean, I'm working technology long enough to understand it's quite complex as well, right? But human or machine identity will fundamentally access resources, right? We verify with strong authentication and authorization, okay? And if we consider resources to be enterprise systems, assets, etc., resources, but fundamentally multi-cloud and some to the power of 2. But fundamentally what we're trying to do here is understand that the machine or the human, who they say they are, turns out to be correct. And so that we'll allow them through dynamically, obviously, we're not statically, right, but dynamically, right? And what we're trying to do is access of these resources are determined by policy. And I'll pause here for a moment. You know, some of these concepts wouldn't be foreign if you're a security practitioner, right? You assume breach, minimum blast radius, end-to-end encryption, right? Follow the least privilege principle. But fundamentally, this is a left-to-right workflow. And I haven't touched on in some of the SNCC and I think Systing and those organizations really, you know, right where we're looking at a runtime. We're trying to understand what's running on these workloads. But if we keep that workflow in mind. The tenet of trust and security is, who are you? Who are you? Where is your certificate? Where is your certificate? We constantly want to be understanding that. Modern identity is complex, especially across multiple cloud service providers, right? So we have application identities, Kubernetes, OpenShift, Token, Cloud Foundry, networks, cloud, AWS, GCP, Azure, Oracle, Active Directory. Whether it's a trusted source of identity or whether it's a credential or an artifact of that identity, it's complex, right? Because on-prem, in the cloud, plethora of understanding identity and really trying to make sure that whoever they say they are, and continuously assessing and validating that. You take that, right, and you couple with how customers are transforming. I think if you remember early on, those statistics around 13% are going to go to the cloud. Maybe there's 2% that are not going to go. We don't know. And then there's ones that just did the lift and shift and realized, frick, we're just running all our stuff in this new data center. We need to sort of refactor or mitigate that cost. Whether you're trying to break down the mono to micro, or I speak to some customers where they'll still stay on the monolith type approach, but they might decouple some of those services to talk back to monolith. But whatever it is, they're in this journey of transforming. What does this all mean? Mitchell Hashimoto, founder of Hashicorp, they talk about this generational shift, right? where we're going from a static infrastructure to a dynamic infrastructure. So think about the Airbnb mentality. Like, hey man, keys, high trust. Do what you want to do. Don't go to the shed. Shaun's in the shed. A clear network perimeter, security enforced by addresses, IP addresses, right to that chain of hotels, right, where I might go to Taj, I might go to St. Regis, I have access digitally to all these places, but we've got to really encourage or look at low trust across multiple clouds, right? Remember one of the statistics, I think it was 86% or 81%, forgive me if I get it wrong, customers are feeding back that multi-cloud is a thing. Whether they use the cloud for what service, I mean, I always think of, you know, Azure, AWS, GCP, Oracle. I think of them as advanced data centers, right? Tons of services, tons of capabilities, right? Really powerful, like a game of golf. I play golf, like trying to get the right club for the right shot. And that's where I feel messaging comes back from customers. We're using multi-cloud, but we're trying to make sure that we're using the right pattern for the right scenario. I touched on this a little bit earlier on. I just got to see how I am for time because 13 minutes. Wow. I was going to try sticking a 2-minute demo, unrelated, but okay, cool. But really what this is really talking about is, you know, old school data center, tightly coupled apps, and then we started going to infrastructure as a service, modular, but we're starting to pull them up. But it introduces a lot of complexity. I'm just really highlighting how things are getting complex. Fundamentally, what we're trying to do, like all partners and all practitioners are trying to do, we're trying to avoid breaking in. I like what John said early on. It's not like I'm not trying to name or, I'm just using this is quite an old scenario with Merit, for example, but stuff's happening, right? And I used to live in Australia. It's getting personal. You know, I don't know if you realize that. It's getting very personal. That's an email to myself from the Optus breach that happened a while ago. And I just chucked the Airbnb one in there because I thought it might fit with the story where someone was stealing stuff. But anyway. All right, so let's talk about accessing these rooms, right? So you get your digital key. Like, what does that look like? So keys, right? You get access. Fantastic. It's issued safely, possibly, probably. Can you rotate it? Can you expire it? Can you revoke it? Can you audit it? What sort of controls can you put down on these keys? And this is something, you know, keeping in mind from a machine identity perspective. We're just really talking. And these are some of the things I'd encourage you to think about in your organization, right? Because what you're really fundamentally trying to do is you're trying to create a moving target. You're trying to create fluidity. You don't want anything static, anything sitting isolated. You want to sort of pull it in and make sure that it's dynamic. Key cards, right? We're getting on that, maybe those steps of maturity for key cards. We access, fantastic. Is it issued safely? Absolutely. Can you rotate it? Well, yeah, you can, because, you know, you lose your card or it's no longer working or you want to lengthen or decrease it, you can absolutely rotate it, right? You can expire it. So when a recipient says, hey, that identity, bang, it's out. You can revoke it. You can audit it. Auditing is critical, like critical. Like what is really going on with these artifacts throughout your system, throughout your place. But the challenge is around sharing, right? You can share those cards in the example I used a little bit early on. So bring your own identity, dynamic credentials, right? Where it really has a unified revelation that, hey, this artifact belongs to this identity. This identity validates this artifact. And it's dynamic, right? It's of a dynamic capacity. So you can access as yes. You can secure that identity. You can rotate. You can expire. You can revoke. You can audit. And you can push down security controls, granular. So bring your own identity. Dynamic credentials. Those dynamic artifacts. At Hashicorp, depending on who you're talking to, machine authentication and authorization. Like there's a couple of identity-driven controls that we kind of simplify, break down to. Machine authentication and authorization. So we authenticate that the Shaun, the human or the machine is who they say they are, and then we authorize them by a policy to do what they need to do, following that pattern of least privileged, hey, you can go do these things. So if you think about my hotel analogy, digital identity with my card is like, hey, Shaun, you got access, you're on the 5th floor. Why are you trying to go to the penthouse? You can't go to the penthouse. You're not allowed to do that. Stay on the 5th floor. Go set your air conditioning unit. Let the machine identities do what they need to do. Machine-to-machine access. Human-to-machine access. Human authentication and authorization. And I really think that if that survey representing, I mean, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. It's a survey, right? Sometimes samples are great to sort of realize, are you going in the right direction? But if that survey be true and that percentage for multi-cloud is legit, how are you in your sort of sphere of influence, how are you navigating that identity, those identities? I guess some ideas, right? What you're really trying to do is broker all identities across application networks and users, and then secure everything based on identity. We're trying to simplify things. We're trying to broker, unify identities across application network users across all platforms and data centers. So you're really trying to simplify that experience. Okay, so I'll just give you an idea or some thoughts around strategy for brokering complex identity. The head. So concept of clients, whether that's human or machine. The human or machine comes in, goes to get authenticated. That authentication is driven or brokering true identity from your provider, whether that's Azure Active Directory, GCP IAM, or AWS IAM. I had this crazy conversation the other day with a colleague about cloud native identity, and is that a thing? And what you're saying to me that in a sophisticated data center, not everything is cloud native. And that really rocked me, because I was like, okay, I see what he's saying. But what we're just really calling out you, do you have an approach or a mechanism or capability to human or machine come in, say, hey, authenticated, and your driver policy down, where you go and access and do what you need to do, but the policies applied are going to be only what you need just in time, just only what you need to do what you need to do to get what you need to get. But the exciting thing about this is that when you start taking this approach, when you're abstracting it, and obviously I work for Hashicorp, so there is a bit of a plug there for a capability, but what I'm really just trying to say is, like, think about these things on your multi-cloud journey and security and how you scale that, right? Is user authentication is dynamically and strictly enforced before access. Access to resources is determined by policy, and then obviously observation, so the goodness of systems that come from the outside in to make sure that everything is good and everything's healthy. So these are just some things I'd encourage you to be thinking about. So really just 3 pillars underpinned with automation. What we're really talking about is managing your secrets, centrally store, access, and distribute those secrets, the ability to encrypt your data in flight and at rest, and then what I started with, really, identity-based access, ability to abstract or manage multi-cloud. Because obviously those sophisticated data centers are not going to go away. The services and the benefits that each of them provide, and they're all powerful in their own sort of way, is only going to help us, solve the stuff like cancer and all the bad stuff, and help, and I guess help humanity move forward. And that's really it. I've got 5 minutes. I've just got one quick demo that I wanted to finish out on. I didn't have a demo, but I thought it would be a good way to, because I felt like I had a 25-minute speaking session. Hopefully this works. I decided to do it in honor of SNCC, really. It's just an organization, just a workspace. Okay, cool. So all I'm really doing here is provisioning to one of those sophisticated data centers, a bunch of networking stuff. And really, secrets, you can sort of go out and get them, and they allocate me those secrets just to do what I need to do with the minimal viable permissions. And then hopefully, let's just do, the workflow is go and build some stuff for me, Shaun. I'm doing some run tasks where I pull in SNCC, for example, and, you know, doing some scanning of what I'm building. But using Open Policy Agent, I'm like, Friday, no more releases, it's bar time. Loved hanging out today at DevOps Talk for the win. That won't build in AWS. I think there's like, I put together like 40 resources that it would go and build. I can pass that, but yeah, I really, hopefully that helps. Hopefully it's some time, and I appreciate everybody. Yeah, 3 minutes, but I appreciate everyone for taking the time and hanging out today. Learn a lot and appreciate you. So thanks very much.